If you haven't heard Bert's overheating story, you're gonna love this. It's a great story about keeping a cool head in crisis, a sailboat engine overheating, a wildly creative way to solve a plugged water intake, and some lessons we can learn to help better equip our own boats for this all too common overheating situation. Bert Vermeer, well known in the cruising world from his time at Good Old Boat and other things, and now working with us, wrote a good article recently. I'll link it in the description so you can read the whole thing. Bert writes, "It was another spectacular summer day as we released the dock lines and once again escaped life ashore, the trusty diesel humming beneath our feet. The weather forecast promised sunshine and moderate winds. My wife and I were uncharacteristically late, something that seldom occurred on our boat. Friends were in a beautiful anchorage just 10 miles away, cocktails and dinner awaiting our arrival. We wanted to be there. Light wind rippled the clear blue water as we passed the breakwater, a plethora of other boats skittering about like water bugs on a lake. A busy afternoon at the marina with a promise of another relaxing weekend on the water. Suddenly, an alarm shattered the idyllic scene, one that I had not heard before. A quick scan of the engine panel showed a bright red warning light for engine temperature. The accompanying gauge showed well above normal and rising rapidly. Not good. I quickly shut down the diesel and scrambled to roll out the Genoa to maintain steerage in the crowded channel. Fortunately, the breeze was just forward of the beam and we could maintain course on a tight reach. Carrie took over the helm as I dove below to open the engine compartment. A wave of heat billowed into my face as I removed the companionway stairs. The trusty diesel seemed somewhat forlorn, apologetic for causing such a problem. The heat exchanger was too hot to touch. I wasn't going to open the coolant cap to check the fluid levels. The raw water strainer's clear plastic top showed no debris and empty of water as well. Strange. I'm somewhat fanatical about engine maintenance, and I knew the raw water pump was almost new and probably not the cause. I instructed Carrie to momentarily start the engine. No seawater flooded into the strainer. Not good. The strainer was mounted so that the top lip of the bowl was at seawater level. I knew that if I took the screw top off the strainer, water should quickly flood to the top of the plastic bowl. I did, and it didn't. Damn. A quick check of the hose between the raw water intake and the strainer showed no points of collapse. Something was plugging the intake. I wasn't going to be able to fix that right away, so climbed back to the cockpit to assess our predicament. We were about a mile from the safety of our berth at the marina. It was mid-afternoon on the first day of a 4-day jaunt to the Canadian Gulf Islands, and friends were waiting our arrival. The breeze was steady and from the right direction. It was a very short discussion. We're on a sailboat. Let's go sailing. The main was hoisted and joined the Genoa as we heeled into the breeze. The afternoon quickly vanished in a glorious 3-hour reach to Bedwell Harbor. Although the wind went very light for a while, we managed to sail to a vacant mooring buoy and secure the boat. Diagnosis and repair could wait. Cocktails and dinner and good company under a setting sun took precedent. The next morning, I reassessed the problem. Aboard Natasha, our 1978 Islander Bahama 30, we had a Beta 20 diesel mounted on a sail drive, a system I had installed 9 years earlier before and was very familiar with. The reliable combination allowed for quiet, nearly vibration-free motoring when we lacked wind. The raw water intake was through the sail drive leg protruding under the hull, much like the water intake of an outboard motor. What could have plugged the intakes on both sides of the leg? I had no intention of going for a swim in the 10°C water if I could help it. I started the Beta momentarily and put the prop in reverse, hoping the wash would force the obstruction away from the inlet ports. No luck. On Natasha, we've always had an inflatable dinghy for going ashore. The dinghy came with a foot pump for inflation. Although not identical in diameter, the hose of the pump lined up reasonably well with the raw water hose I'd removed from the intake port of the raw water strainer. I taped the two hoses together using plenty of rescue tape, something every boater should carry. Starting carefully, I pressurized the raw water intake hose leading to the leg. Nothing happened other than to pressurize the hoses, no sound of bubbles under the hull. Careful pressure eventually led to stomping on the pump. Suddenly, the pump went slack and I could hear air bubbles escaping under the hull. Success! I quickly shut the seacock at the leg before seawater flooded up into the foot pump. The two hoses were separated and the raw water hose reconnected to the raw water strainer. Opening the seacock quickly filled the bowl with seawater. Starting the engine showed excellent water flow. We were back in business. I never did see what it was that had plugged the intakes. With this new successful solution, I now carry a nylon adapter to connect a raw water intake hose to the Dinghy air pump hose. Two properly sized hose clamps are included in the emergency kit should this occur in the future. No need for rescue tape. I'm ready. This setup would also work well for the standard engine through-hull intake hose. No need to get wet as water pours into the boat. As is typical of this type of boating issue, they always seem to occur at critical times, not when you have the luxury of time to come up with a solution. At next haul out, I installed a second raw water through-hull near the engine with proper seacock. A T connected the new through-hull to the seawater strainer hose. Should this problem crop up again, particularly around marinas or other tight places, I can simply open the backup seacock intake to keep the engine happy until I can sort out the blockage. Now, Bert installing a second backup water intake obviously means another hole in the boat, which a lot of people might not want to do. It's a controversial decision, and in the event of a clogged intake again, Bert can quickly use the second intake to keep the engine running to avoid a panic emergency situation. Although he did pretty good in that situation, at the expense of another hole in the boat, obviously. A calculated decision on Bert's behalf, I'm sure. Bert adds one more thing that he did here, and I think this is very important. He says, I have also installed an Aqualarm water flow sensor with alarm indicator on the engine control panel. If the intake is blocked in the future, the alarm will sound long before a blocked water intake hose becomes an issue at the engine, allowing ample opportunity to shut down before overheating occurs. The diesel is too valuable both as a friend as well as a financial expense should we not catch such a failure in time. What he's talking about here is this product, the Aqualarm Cooling Water Flow Detector. The product description says 1-inch female pipe thread that adapts for use on smaller engines with 1/2-inch ID and 3/4-inch ID raw water hose. 2 hose to barb adapters are needed. Now with paddle type detector, monitors marine engine raw water flow to prevent engine damage due to overheating. Activates a visual or audible device immediately whenever raw water flow is stopped or impeded. Is a 2-wire non-polarity switch that is normally closed. They also have a normally open available, and opens at 1.5 gallons per minute of raw water flow. Stays open until water flow slows or ceases and then activates any audible or visual boat alarm. It is designed for low flow applications such as smaller engines or generators, and it's 12 volt, 24 or 32. Basically, you add this device to the water hose on the way to the engine's water pump, and it'll set off an alarm when the water flow in that hose goes below 1.5 gallons per minute. I'd imagine you'd wire this to the accessory power on the ignition, so it only works when the key is on, but will definitely provide an early warning that the engine is about to overheat. And even if it only buys you a minute or two, that might just be the minute or two you need to get the boat somewhere safe to anchor or moor while you still are under power. In researching Bert's suggested water alarm, I went down the rabbit hole of other water tech and found these cool sensors. They're an induction-style switch activated by water that operates on 12 volt, the same technology those no moving parts bilge pump switches use. You could use these anywhere on the boat that you want. The obvious is a bilge pump switch to fire the bilge pump whenever the water reaches this switch, shutting the pump off when the water's gone. But you could also use these for high water alarms, higher water alarms, and even higher water alarms. And in more unconventional systems like maybe your drinking water supply. Placing one of these near the bottom of the tank, maybe so the last 5 gallons of water will trip the switch, which would give you a final warning before you run out of drinking water. Technology has come a long way, and I love finding these new products that I can engineer into my systems to make my boat safer and easier to use. A big thanks to Bert for the great story about his overheating engine. What stories do you have that we can learn from? I can't wait to hear from you in the comments. And while you're here, if you like Bert's ingenious dinghy pump story, hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more from Practical Sailor, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.